Welcome one, welcome all to a new episode of the Good Anime Palette Podcast. You might be wondering why the intro to this Bits and Pieces is a little bit different than usual. Well, not only do we have my partner in crime, Jason, and myself here, we've also been joined by a very special presence. This is the first time we've ever done a guest spot on the Good Anime Palette Podcast. Now, this is not any ordinary guest. This is not only just one of our close friends, but he's also, part-time poet, part-time writer, part-time comedian, stand-up. He's also been the ambassador for a mental health organization in Hong Kong, has taken part in many poetry nights at the Peel Street Poetry in Hong Kong, has been interviewed by countless magazines and news outlets in Hong Kong. It's the one and only Vishal Nanda. Give it up for our good friend.
Doing? Yeah, you made me feel so special there.
I had to do my research because
that was scary.
So, well, that's because I was just looking in. And
I'll be honest. I didn't even know about that intro.
I think I'm flushing. I think I'm actually flushing.
Well, I know that.
Oh, wow.
Well, I know that you've been a host of the Hong Kong Literary Festival once. You've also taken part in TEDx Wan Chai. You have been on RTHK Radio 3.
Yeah.
You do occasional, actually quite frequent poetry nights at Orange Peel before. Now it's called Social Room. You're ambassador of Mind Hong Kong. You've been interviewed by Asia Cha as well. And you've also done a couple of stand-up routines at the Aftermath. So
all right, yes, you did your research.
I had to. It's actually
you can learn a lot about a person these days.
It's kind of hard to find some stuff on you.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
this is really that's.
Oh yeah, do we?
I sound pretty cool.
Yeah.
I sound like a cool guy.
Oh yeah, do we also mention that Vishal is our really good friend, our mutual friend? We forgot to mention all of that.
Oh yeah,
too, right?
we're all good friends.
Yeah.
So I've known Vish for about 5 years now. I think the first time because I met you before, but the first time we properly met was we played a game of Twilight Imperium 4th edition back in 2019, 2020 when I was super hungover, and you're like, you know what, it's his first time playing. Let's just give him Universities of Jolnar.
And they introduced you as Warlord Will to me.
I almost won that game as well, but that's because you guys felt so bad that you gave me all your support for the Thrones. And
sometimes pity is the way to go.
The only person that didn't give me the support was was Raz. So therefore, that's why I only ended on 9 points. But that was my first time playing, and ever since then, I've been very much into the world of board games, of tabletop gaming. Just I think in terms of that particular aspect, I have you to thank for as well because you're a part of it. I think your history with Jason actually goes even further.
Yeah, we've been friends for over a decade. I think at this point. I hope. I got that right.
So without mentioning too much insider personal details, when you were living in TST, that was when we first met because we had a mutual friend who went to the same school as I did.
My God, that was a while ago.
That was actually a long time ago. So that was at least before I went into university around the time. Yeah. So then that's almost 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I've both been your dungeon masters in a non-sexual way.
Oh,
no.
Well,
no.
It depends on the makeup of the crew and how far we want to go into the sex stuff. But
sometimes it becomes LARPing.
It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of consent. Okay, first of all, we've all consented to.
Yeah.
So it's not like we've been imposed.
It's just role playing. It's fully willing participants here.
Yeah.
But how are we going to bring this back to anime?
Well, we can talk about anime and consent. That's not a touchy subject at all.
Ease into it.
Yeah.
I think the main reason why we brought on Vishal was, so in terms of your sort of intake of media entertainment, I think you've gone through watching movies, reading poetry, but a lot of books. You have a very impressive bookshelf in terms of the books that you have. You've also got into a lot of gaming, whether it be on console, PC, or with pen and paper doing tabletop gaming. What would you say is the sort of crux for you when it comes to your media entertainment? What do you usually default to when you want to sit back and enjoy something?
Yeah, that's tough because there's so much now that you can consume at any moment in time. So I definitely oscillate between a lot of video games and I like making stuff. So I like doing things like creating my tabletop games, or writing stories. And when I'm in a creative mood, I don't consume as much, which is not usually actually a good thing. They say that's when you should like read the most and watch the most and all that. But I don't watch a ton of TV anymore.
Okay.
Wait, okay.
Yeah, I don't actually watch a ton. The TV I watch is with my wife when we like sit down for like a way to hang out together, to be honest. Like I don't actually watch like
Yeah, I don't binge a whole lot of like outside of anime, of course, right? I don't binge a whole lot of TV shows. It's more like you said, it's when I'm with my wife, it's like, the Bear is back on Disney Plus.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, a new season of Selling Sunset, so like some trash reality TV stuff like that. But
No MILF Manor.
Yeah, so it's not like I use it as my preferred medium.
It's just a way to hang out. Like it's a way to spend time, right?
Yeah.
Video games is probably my biggest. I just came off this ridiculous project, so I haven't done anything much in like a few months. So it's a bit hard to recall.
That's not true. You've been very busy the past couple of months.
No, as in because of that, I haven't watched a lot of stuff. Like I haven't. I like to read as well.
But sort of like bringing back, because you were mentioning that you like to create, right? So it's not just in terms of working with tabletop gaming, working as a dungeon master, but you've also, I think you've worked with a studio called Baller Industries in terms of working as like a game designer.
Oh yeah, that brings me back. Yeah, I did. I made back in the day when Xbox Live Arcade had like the very first indie market where like now you can go on like the Nintendo eShop or Steam and you can find these indie games. You can find some really cheap indie games as well.
Yeah, you can find some for like
99 cents, right? Or like even free because, why not? But like back in the day, Xbox Live Arcade, when I say back in the day, I mean like 12 years ago.
Yeah, like Castle Crashers was like the pinnacle.
Castle Crashers was like a AAA game in comparison to like
was
some
like
of
the first.
Yeah, I remember
Braid. That was like a high quality indie game. So I made trash. I wrote the script for an adventure game, 2 adventure games. One of them was Get Rich or Die Gaming. Came up with that title myself.
Is proud.
Yeah. I came up with the title myself. That did pretty well. That actually sold quite a lot of copies at the time. I don't know why, but the sequel was Get Rich or Die Gaming 2, which I thought it would be funny to call Rock Bottom as like, and it was. The plot of Rock Bottom was to do with Gaddafi.
Oh
and
no.
You took over from Gaddafi back when he was still alive, and
you gotta throw in some Libyan politics.
And it was called Rock Bottom, and it tanked. Like it actually made like no money. Who knows why either?
Wow, you ended up actually making a very self-aware game.
I retired from game actually, that's not true. I did another app with the same guy years later, and I just. Anyway, but
you guys still have like a pretty good relationship. You and Baller Industries, you guys still.
We just finished the stupidest competition challenge. It was between me and Baller
and
Industries.
I wanted to bring that up because so you had just got off of a writing challenge, which was between you and another friend in terms of writing a book.
And he's the Baller Industries guy.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. He's the guy that I worked with, Angus. Yeah.
Yes, Angus.
So it's the exact.
He was
same
a great
guy.
help for me in terms of helping me get in my.
Yeah, he's
my
a
first
great
job
guy.
As well, yeah.
Also a massive troll.
Yeah.
As you could probably tell by our mutual games that we designed together.
Yeah. So you spent a month, a 1 month challenge in terms of writing a novel, and then at the end of that 1 month, you needed to put it onto a marketplace. I think it was on Amazon.
Yeah.
And basically see how many copies of the book you could sell, and whoever sold the most, the loser would then have to do like a launch party for you.
It was write it in a month and then sell it for 2 months. And it was a book.
Yeah.
So in reality, I wrote it in a month and like 3 days, and then I edited it for like almost 2 months, and then I released it like a week before the deadline. And I sold more copies.
Yeah.
And then I went out with Angus, and we went to a bar, and I was like, I put my arm around him, and I was like, "Hey, buddy, like, I know that I said to you that if I win, we should both do a mutual launch party where we launch both our books because we both tried so hard." But I kind of changed my mind because I worked really hard on this.
You got to bask in your glory.
Yeah, you got to bask. Also, your book is like it's kind of trash. So,
yo, shots fired! Holy shit!
Yeah, so it is if you see it.
So the book that you wrote is it's called.
Sorry,
I
he told me that I'd lost. And then he brings out WhatsApp and he's like, "Idiot, we didn't say it was a number of copies sold. We said revenue." And I'm like, that's why you sold your ebook for $12. I sold mine for 99 cents. Like,
Oh, he got you on the fine print.
he got me so hard. And this is right after I'm like, I'm not going to help you launch your book. So he just like smiled at me. He's like, you got to have to launch my book, pal.
Wow,
But you can talk about yours at the launch as well.
You went from getting your shoe scrubbed to becoming the shoe scrubber. Fuck. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Right. Well, I was actually hoping to be a bit more positive in terms of how your book came out.
No, it's awesome though, because like,
but it was all for fun,
and
right?
also, well, I'm trying to do self-publishing on Kindle and start a writing career there and things like that. And this helps jumpstart it. So,
So the book itself, it's called Empire of Others.
Yeah.
I've read 5 chapters of it so far.
Oh, thank you.
It's really good.
Wow.
It's really good, but it's also because of the fact that a lot of it is based on like our experiences with gaming, particularly with a game called John Company. I think you've also taken some inspiration from other games that you've played as well. So this is gonna blow your mind, Jace. Have you read the book yet?
I'm on like chapter 3.
Yeah. So there's a tournament arc.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is very
by the way,
very classic in terms.
I'm just gonna ask you like straight up on the recording, why House Sky does not have an E on it?
Because I based the book, a lot of it, on a board game called John Company.
Yeah. Doesn't it have an E in the sky?
No, it doesn't. The House
Really?
Sky in John Company has no E.
I really thought it did.
I
thought I
I'm
got
pretty
you.
sure.
Damn it.
Yeah,
You've got
and
the
I
bit-
based the names of all the houses.
You've got
off
the
board
Mandela
game.
effect. You've got the Mandela
I
effect.
did get the Mandela effect. Damn it.
I'm saying this as confidently as I can. There is a chance I'm just completely wrong.
Well, either way, the book's out there
sure.
now.
I'm pretty sure. You're gonna Google.
We're gonna
it.
Google the fucking thing right now.
So like I wanted to sort of like mention the book because it. So
I appreciate that.
when reading it, it felt like I was actually like there's a manga and anime series called Vinland Saga, and it kind of plays out like that, where the introduction is just insane bloodshed and violence, and then it all calms down, and then it then pivots back into more of like a shonen action where you get introduced to the cast, you start learning about like the hierarchy of all the families, and then straight away they go into some weird mishmash of like lacrosse, cricket, like this sports tournament arc, which is like this is a fucking anime, dude.
It's so funny you said, because my favorite novel besides Dune, which is my favorite novel, is very anime and was inspired by a lot of anime. And then this novel also took a lot of stylistic elements.
Which is that? Which novel is that?
It's called the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. It's science fiction. And it's very like it's arguable that it might be young adult or not adult. Like people basically kind of you're showing me the rule book for John
Here's an
Company
image from Board Game Geek.
Oh, that says Sykes, so I didn't even use the name.
Shit.
Yeah, I didn't. Apparently, I used House Sky.
Damn
Okay.
it.
Well,
Back on Red Rising.
Told.
Yeah.
So anyway, Red Rising.
Damn it.
Red Rising. So it's a sci-fi series. There's 3 novels, and then there's like a post trilogy afterwards by this author Pierce Brown. It's my second or one of my favorite series of novels, and it's very action packed and very like. You know what? Now that you're asking me, I'm like thinking, what is so anime about it? And I think that like, can I talk a little bit about the just anime?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I talk on this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, be our guest. You literally are our guest.
You literally are our guest.
So like the anime is the anime element of it is that it's very like hyper real. Like all the story beats and all the characters are like dialed up to like 15 or something like that. And I think that comes with the medium of anime, because in the medium of anime you can visually show distinctive characters who like frankly wear the same ridiculous thing like episode after episode in a lot of like the shonen stuff, right?
Right.
But that makes them like they have that like comic book character appeal,
Right.
without the Western comic book sort of like infantilism, you know, like because those are like very childlike. There's not as much violence in a lot of them. They don't address a lot of like more mature topics.
Yeah, I
the way
I
anime
agree.
does.
It's like if you talk like specifically with like superhero graphic novels and comics, where like you have like your Iron Mans, you have your Spawns and whatnot. It's like the character get-ups are more sort of like based on symbolism. So like
Yeah,
with the colors,
exactly.
Yeah.
whereas like with anime characters, it's like that character wears red because they're a tsundere and they're hot-headed as fuck. They're the knucklehead, the musclehead.
Their
Yeah.
hair has color.
Yeah.
He's the main character. He's
Yeah.
one of the main characters or supporting characters.
Yeah.
The superhero costumes are kind of arbitrary. Like they're just there because they were designed in like the 60s.
Yeah.
But the anime always tells you something about their personality.
Yes.
It like tells you about who that person is, and it's very distinctive. And that's what the characters are like in Red Rising. They each have like a thing that makes them very distinctive, or like several things that make them very distinctive.
Yeah.
Right. And to be clear, also, Vish, you watch anime as well. It's just not necessarily all the time, right? But you watch like Attack on Titan.
I finished Attack on Titan recently, and I haven't seen a ton of anime in a little while, but that's because I haven't been watching a ton of stuff in general.
But you're familiar with the medium, right?
Yeah, pretty familiar.
I like that, you know, your characterization of how anime characters are very hyper real. It's true. It's like if this character is a mopey son bitch, they are the mopiest of son bitches. If this character is like gloating in like glory and wealth, they are going to be the richest motherfucker, and they'll let you know every episode until their downfall.
Yeah, and then their maid shows up or their butler shows up with them at all times. It's like really,
and the
like,
butler's like twiddle the mustache and
Yeah.
the bald and like the
super
suit,
on the
like,
nose,
yeah,
but
it's
that's
super
his,
on the nose.
that's his thing.
It
Yeah,
almost borders on like caricature, like self-aware, where like we know we are making this character way more like realistic to the point where it's no longer realistic, but we're going to like go in on it, and like it works.
It's a trope. Yeah.
I think it's also because of the fact that like, when you're watching an anime, given it is animated, it's based most of the time based on fiction, you can have that separation of reality where you know that these characters are meant to be over portrayed. They're meant to dive deeper into that representation, and you're not like, depending on who you are, you don't necessarily need to take it that seriously. There are times though when like certain characters kind of go beyond who they are, and it's down to like the audience in terms of their own interpretation of that character, and that's why you have certain characters that are like the best husbandos, the best waifus. There's some like very misunderstood characters where like you kind of know who they are, but because of like the anime fans like undying love for them, that they make them more than they are. So anime characters, anime stories being hyper real, being like a bit like over the top, I think that's a pretty good summation of a lot of anime series.
And it's part of the fun, right?
Yeah.
Because then you get these these characters that stick with you,
Yeah.
and everything about them. Like if you just think of like the stuff surrounding anime, like the merch and the models and the collecting of posters and images, right? It's because they're so distinctive.
Yeah.
You don't have that with like Pride and Prejudice, you know what I
No.
mean? Like you don't have that with a lot of novels, even action-packed novels, even like Hunger Games. You don't have like models of Katniss, right? But like in anime, you get all these really distinctive emblems, right? That you
Yeah.
want to collect, and it's part of the fun. It's whether you can tolerate the trope. Is the trope too at times ridiculous? Then you're not as into it. If like my wife has issues with anime that are just down to tropes, things that everyone else is comfortable with, but that she finds takes her out of the story, right? It's your tolerance for those things in a genre.
Do you think it's because you grew up in Hong Kong where that maybe is more commonplace versus...
For sure. Like
Yeah.
100%. Because like the what is it, the weeb an
Yeah.
idea in America? You can't have a weeb in Asia. Because I mean,
No,
I'm
no.
like Jason's literally like, I don't know, man.
It does not compute, right?
Does not. No, because it's accepted. It's
Right.
It's practically mainstream. You're not making fun of people for liking anime. You're celebrating people for liking anime and for
well,
liking like Gunpla. and for
I
liking...
wouldn't say as much as it's celebrating it per se, but or condemning it. It's more like it's just there, right?
It's more ingrained.
Like we're in the
Yeah.
subway. If you saw,
Yes.
like, growing up, people reading manga, you just wouldn't
It's
bat
just
an eye.
nothing-
You just wouldn't care.
Well, it's like, you can get like an Uber or a taxi and they'll have anime figures all across their dashboard.
Oh, I've seen that. For
right?
sure,
Yeah, you
for
see that,
sure.
right? And these are like 45-year-old men, right? Who have like super proud
I've definitely
of like
seen
their...
like souped up Subarus with
Yep.
like Hello Kitties all lined up in the back, or like every single character from One Piece. Just
Yes,
lined up on
I was
their
literally
dashboard,
just thinking of
like
One Piece.
I see. It's definitely a lot more sort of commonplace.
It's more commonplace, and it's less. It's people aren't derogatory about it the way that like I think in the West there's a lot of prejudices and stereotypes associated with anime. Now I'm not saying that there isn't some truth to some of those stereotypes, but like
I mean, we're all degenerates here, so.
well, yeah. Also, there's a lot. There's like a negative culture to some
No,
of it as well
definitely.
because it's associated with like hyper masculinity and like that. Like incel shit.
Over like sexualization.
Over
of,
sexualization.
Yeah.
The what are you the too young.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
showdown
yeah.
and then the lollies. Look,
The lollies,
look,
yeah, the
let-
lollies,
let's be
neckbeard.
clear
Anyway,
here.
yeah, but-
every industry, every medium has issues, and we you can't excuse it. And whether you like it or not, it's part of it. And
But to be fair,
Well, I mean, you can try and-
You and I also have issues with certain tropes
Yes,
and
exactly.
stereotypes within
Yeah.
the anime
But-
world as
but,
well.
but also, Will and I, and even you, Vish, the three of us probably can't change the industry, or at least the perception of it, that much dramatically.
It's what sells the
Yeah.
industry, right?
Or at
Like,
least part of it, at least.
I mean, things change over time, right?
Yeah.
Like you could just
That's the hope.
there's-
That's
yeah.
our
It's
hope.
always things always shift, right? Like and it's hard to value how much pushback matters, but like it does aggregate into something in the end, right? With enough people believing in something.
But it's definitely
you guys
questionable.
are fighting the good
Hella
fight
questionable.
right
Yeah.
now. You guys are pushing
Yeah.
the boundaries.
So one thing that I wanted to sort of ask as well was, so not only have you just finished a write and publish a book in a month and then sell it for 2 months, but you've also previously done another challenge, which was 3 novels in 3 months.
Oh yeah,
That
Jesus.
was if I recall, okay, I have them.
that was 5 years ago.
So the books were called Love and Taxi Queues, Children of the Pantheon, and Jack of Clubs.
That's right.
Yes. And this was like 5 years ago. So back in
6 years ago.
2018.
Because I was doing it before I turned 30 because I wanted to accomplish something.
Yeah. So I wanted to refer you.
I had like an
yeah.
existential crisis. I'm like,
Oh,
I've
Jesus.
done nothing with my life, so I'm gonna overcompensate
I think you've done plenty with your life, but okay, sure. You do you, man.
or not do me.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I got issues.
But yeah, I mean, like to be able to say that you publish stuff is not something like a lot of people can even say.
I mean, I'm
Honestly.
just disappointed that Will didn't mention my published poetry collection.
No,
by
no.
Proverse
Okay,
Publishing.
please stand behind. Please stand back behind the train doors. I remember that. I have your
Please
signed
stand
copy.
back from
From
the
the
platform.
platform doors.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
Wow, way to call me
I'm just
out.
messing
I
with you.
have
I'm
the-
just
I have the book
I
on the
really
other side of
appreciate
this
that you.
wall.
I
Well-
can never promote anything I do, so it's actually very nice that you took the time to mention these things that I've done.
Well, the reason why I brought that up was because of the fact that you had done an interview with BC Magazine back in 2016.
Oh yeah, I did.
In which I quote, from Vishal.
Oh no.
I don't believe in writer's block. My rule is that if I can't figure out a problem, I'm only allowed to quit if I've sat in front of a desk and stared at a page for an hour and a half and truly come up with nothing, which I honestly think is a rarity. I tried to abide by that rule. And I think that then, 2 years later, you then did the 3-month challenge. And in terms of getting through the creative process of just putting words on paper or whatever app you're using to write, what sort of challenges did you come through in terms of not just like writing the 3 books, 3 novels, but also the more recent one, Empire of Others, in terms of like when you get to that point where you aren't able to put something on paper, what is it that you use to sort of rejig that creative mind? And is it more just like sort of breaking through and forcing yourself to write something? Is it maybe taking a break and trying to take an inspiration from something, and once you find that, it's like it clicks, and then you just go back and you start putting stuff on paper again?
That's a really tough question, because I think that is the eternal struggle of creative people, is when you get to that point where you have nothing in front of you and you're like, I have to put something down, like I have to make the next thing happen. And there are so many ways through that, and it's almost magical and mysterious because it could happen in so many different ways. You could go for a walk and then see something on the streets and suddenly be inspired, so it could be inspiration. But I take it from the way I like to do it is I think of thinking about writing and trying to solve a narrative problem as writing. So if I sit there in my chair for half an hour, I leave the iPad, I go to my armchair, I sit there for half an hour, and I just think what is meant to happen next. Why am I writing this story in the first place? Like, what is the theme of this story? What is the question that I wanted to answer? Go back to the beginning. Like, why am I doing this? If I sit there for half an hour and I just think about that, to me, that's writing. Right. Like, that counts. So I don't blame myself for that. I don't, because that's the problem, is when you start blaming yourself, when you start feeling bad, when that internal editor gets in the way, then you're not doing constructive things. Then you're just beating yourself up. Then you're feeling bad. Then you're not producing anything. Right. So it's a lot of it's about not doing that. Yeah. Because, there's two types of ways your brain works. There's the concentrated processing where you're trying to figure out a problem, and there's the more loosey-goosey shower thoughts, right, where you're just relaxed. And sometimes trying to shift into that mindset makes a big difference as well when you go between those things. Like, there are so many ways to do it, but like it's the mystery of how you solve that, because there's so many crazy ways. And that's why people talk about being inspired as opposed to I made this thing. Right. Like, they remove their agency from having made something, because they say, like, this other force came and possessed me. Or like the Romans, they had this idea that genius was a spirit that came and possessed you. They didn't actually believe that genius was something you are. And so it's like a mystery. Like, it happens in 100 different ways. Do you guys ever do anything creative, like, out of curiosity? Like, do you guys ever? I mean, but this is creative, right?
Yeah.
This counts, right? Like, when you're planning an episode, or when you're actually here in the moment. Like, what do you guys do?
Well, okay, so not creative writing per se. I mean, I used to do some creative writing, as you know.
Yeah.
But when it comes to when you said earlier about thinking about writing counts as writing, when I write like an academic paper or research paper, sometimes you have to like fit the pieces together, and it's not you physically writing it on, a Word app or physically writing it down. It's like figuring it out how to write it. It counts, because then when you get to writing it, it just flows either better or smoother. So then even though you spend time thinking about it, you're not actually technically writing it, it still counts. So I'm very much in that camp. But going back to the creative work thing, I mean, for me, like, before I did all this podcasting stuff and all that, I actually was an underground DJ for about 3-4 years.
I never knew that.
So a couple of friends and I used to throw underground rave parties throughout Hong Kong. So what we would do is we would go on like sort of like location scouting to look for places, because we didn't really want to sort of like be bound by four walls like in a club or like a bar. We wanted to sort of see like if we could create an environment, an ambiance based on our location. And then, based on what we found, we can then curate a specific sort of, set list of music to play along with the environment. So we've done stuff at the amphitheater in Chung Kok. So it's definitely illegal, but like,
hey, the statute of limitations is gone, right?
Yeah. So we've done that. We've done underground bunkers where it was there was one that was off of the shores of Aberdeen, where it used to home a lot of World War II munitions.
This is wild. Did you know this?
I knew about the DJ thing. I didn't know about
there was
like a guerrilla.
This like graffiti
here.
artists.
There was another one that was up in the New Territories where it actually was tunnels that were used during the Second World War when the British were using Hong Kong as like a holdout. The craziest one that we did was this was a location that was just only a few steps away from a cemetery.
Okay. All right, listen. Okay, all right.
I think that's cool.
I think that's cool,
you
but
could
also
raise the dead with that kind of music.
The fucked up thing was that like this is a cemetery where my grandparents were buried.
Okay, all right, guys.
Did they like the tune?
Well, shortly afterwards we moved into a new location. So
the grandparents.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We brought their ashes to like a much more reputable area. So
I just love how
because sadly enough, that wasn't the first time that anybody had done an underground rave in that location.
You saw.
You want to be the first.
Like, yeah.
I just love how like right now we started off being like, oh yeah, anime, manga, kind of thing, and then now all of a sudden it is like learning facts and like is it fiction or is it not about each other now? It's like a friendship therapy
As a fan
group.
of podcasts, I kind of low-key love that, though, when the hosts that you've been listening to reveal tidbits of their life. I like there is someone out there right now touching themselves.
But I do appreciate you, of course, sort of bringing up the creative angle in terms of how you go about producing something, because for sure, like for yourself, right, with the academic works, it's not so much that you're writing, but it's also just trying to sort of, if I'm going with this thesis here, if I'm going with this particular point of interest, how am I going to sort of narrate the rest of my paper and not make it just like I'm just putting words. I'm just putting like statistics and research. I want to be able to make it so that it all flows. Because let's be real, you're gonna need somebody to read that research paper, and if you bore the fuck out of them, it doesn't matter how much information you put on there. If it's dry, you're just gonna lose interest, right?
The thing is, like, one of the reasons why, I guess, excluding the podcast, that I've deviated from writing creative works is not only due to my occupation or just my studies. It's also partly because I became more mechanized in terms of how I see things. In terms of, it's not necessarily like I lost that creative juice or whatever. It is just I just started seeing things more like, as you probably, dear listeners, always hear Will and I
like
banter.
For you,
I'm
it's
always
like,
like the structure, always about the
you,
script.
it's like 1 + 1 always equals 2. No question about it.
Yeah, and then Will is just always more of the free-flowing, chaotic. And then when we mix together, that's when we are the sweet spot.
I mean, when I host an underground, rave near a cemetery, like
okay, let me put it this way: if I was put in that situation, right?
You would have a lot of problems with that.
No. It would be like, fine, if that's what you want to do, then I'll be like, well, okay, what health codes are we violating? What is
we violate a lot of stuff.
Like
we violated a lot of
stuff. If the police come over, what laws are we breaking? What rights do we have? Like, that would be my mindset going into that situation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas you would be like, bro, what if we just did this?
Yeah.
So that's just like a different way of thinking that has just kind of stuck with me and now has developed into the way that I am. So this one podcast was like quite interesting because I think it's like a good mixture of both, because I also cannot talk. I have trouble socializing sometimes.
Yeah.
In like really trying to portray my thoughts, even on the podcast.
But do you feel that like with this podcast now, it's made you a bit more like open in terms of like,
hell yeah,
like moving past your
if you listen to our episode 0,
yeah,
and you listen to us now,
yeah,
it's really weird.
I have legit noticed that in real life. Actually, like, you become a lot more gregarious. Like, you actually are like more talkative and more socially, like, whatever the hell you want to call it. Like, it's
yeah.
Whereas Will just won't stop talking now.
No.
It's awful.
Well, that's why we have the podcast, so Will can expend some
Will's
of that
just,
energy,
Will's
right?
just looking down like,
no, that's
fuck this guy.
No, but it's true. It's true. It's sometimes, whenever, we play our tabletop games, I do feel like the spotlight's on me and like I have to carry this campaign.
No, I'm kidding. You're fine.
You're great. But like, that as well, right? With the tabletop gaming too, right? Like, when you go into it, you as a dungeon master, you need to set up scenarios. You need to set up the flow of the game. You need to figure out how you can move your players from one point to another without being too forceful.
Yeah.
It's like the controversy that Resident Evil 4 the remake had with the yellow ladders, where it's like it's open world, but for some reason that ladder is yellow even though everything is like brown and green, and then people start realizing, oh, the devs are hand holding you and guiding you where you need to go. And so I think like you don't do that at all. You kind of let the characters, the players, figure out what they want to do, and you slowly but surely like give them a little bit of a crumb. Like, okay, you're on the right track, but you're not like straight up saying you got to go here, you got to go there.
No, that's because that's boring. No one wants that.
No.
Like, you want to have agency,
or at least the illusion,
or at least the illusion of it.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, I believe in actual agency in these games. Like, there's this is really tangential, right? But I'm just gonna throw.
Fuck
this
it,
out.
let's go.
Let's just go. All right, so
we'll bring it back to anime somehow.
All right. I can do it. I
have an
can.
angle for this.
Okay,
Have
let's
you
go.
ever heard of the quantum ogre?
No.
That was practically a rhetorical question, because there's no way that you've heard of the quantum ogre.
Oh, so we passed the test,
no,
right?
You passed it. So the quantum ogre is actually a theory in dungeon mastering, because there are theories, there's schools of thought when it comes to this stuff. I read a lot about it. And the idea is that you usually want to maximize player agency. So you want to give them the idea of the fact that where they choose matters. What they choose has a consequence.
Makes sense.
Matters, right? So one of the issues is, let's say you've got 3 forests, and you've got to go rescue the princess, but one of the forests has the princess, one of the forests has an ogre. Now, real player agency would be, I write down that this forest has a princess, this forest has an ogre, this forest is empty. But some GMs, in fact, a lot of GMs, will do something called the quantum ogre, So the quantum
wait,
ogre.
before we
yeah,
say,
I think you
can we
figure it
guess?
out.
Do you-
I
wait,
think
wait.
you can figure where
Okay,
this is going.
hold on. What do you think, Will?
I actually do not know.
Okay, my guess is either chaos theory, quantum, string theory, right? So you roll a dice and then determine how it pans out.
See, that's really interesting that your mind went there because that's
I was-
still a fair bit of agency.
Yes.
that's still
See,
still
that's
a fair
also
bit
like
of
my
agency.
mindset, right?
For me,
But
this
this is the DM's point of view,
For
and this is
me,
what some DMs.
it was kind of more like a Schrodinger kind of thing where like
You're on the right
Yo,
track.
Imagine,
You're
imagine,
on the right
imagine
track.
you have a party and you need to go through two different doors, right?
Yep.
One door leads this way, this door leads that way, but you have no idea what's behind the door. There could be an ogre, there might not be an ogre. And you open a door and there's no ogre. That doesn't then discern the fact that like there might have been the ogre on the other side. But then if you go back through that door, there might not have also been an ogre. So
Well, that you began on the right track there. That's very interesting.
Okay,
Actually, that goes
for
another way.
those who don't know, Schrodinger's cat is a theory of if a cat is in a box that you can't see what's inside, and do you know if it's alive or dead?
it could be both.
It could be both.
Yeah.
So therefore,
Until you open the box,
yes,
you don't know.
and then reveal. So when
So-
the box is
Yeah.
unrevealed, it's technically in two states of being when it's mathematically impossible.
That's why a lot of like time travel, time manipulation anime is very Schrodinger.
So the quantum ogre is it doesn't matter what forest you go to, the DM's gonna put the ogre there. So
What?
he tells you
Fair,
that there is
okay.
an ogre in one, a princess in
Oh,
one.
I
and
see.
But no
Okay.
matter what you do, so the question in like DM theory is, did the players have agency? Because
Okay.
on the one hand,
Dude, that's
they
like
got
AI
to
kind of thing.
Right? Because they got to choose the forest, but no matter what they did, the consequence would have been the same. Some schools of thought are that's deliberately misleading. Other schools of thought are that's fine. It's all part of the smoke and
It
mirrors
is
of
deliberately
DMing.
misleading, but isn't that okay?
I don't think so personally, because I think the best kind of agency is when the consequences matter. And I'm going a little bit deep into it, but the consequences can only matter if the players have an idea of what those consequences are.
Right.
Because otherwise it's still random. Because like you go through a door, you don't know what's on the other side. So what matters what door you pick? You have no information. Whereas if you know you go through this door, you're in danger, or you go through another door, it's safer. That becomes an interesting question then, because then it's like, what do you want to do?
It's kind of like if you were to go between the two doors, you go to the one where it doesn't have the ogre and you do your thing. Then you go back through the other door and you realize that there was a village behind that door, but it was completely destroyed because you didn't deal with the ogre on that side.
You are literally creating a mini adventure in your head right now. Like that's exactly the kind of thought process that
Yeah.
DMs go through. Exactly. Like
Yeah.
or game masters or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. So this is the angle where I was trying to bring it back to a bit more.
Sorry.
All right.
No, so because you were asking about like in terms of creativity, in terms of like being able to put ideas into like fruition, being able to create something that you had as this perspective scenario for whoever is consuming it, whether you are creating a game through being a dungeon master, whether you're writing a book, whether you're writing a thesis for a school of academia to review. For myself, when I was creating a set list of music for people who wanted to get fucked up and dance in the middle of a cemetery. But
Next
at the
to your
same,
grandparents.
but a lot of times it's like when you are. I'm just gonna move past that. when you are like writing, when you are creating something, you kind of have like an endpoint in mind in which this is the result that you wanted to get to, or at least get as close to it. When it comes to writing, not so much just for anime, but also for manga.
I know where you're going. Okay.
When you have not so much an endpoint, because a lot of times whenever you're like let's say you get greenlit for like a TV series, more often than not the production committee would then say, okay, you've got 10 episodes, 12 episodes to do this first season, and then afterwards we'll see if we'll continue. So you kind of write everything knowing that if it was to continue, you have a story beyond the first season, but you have a good endpoint to where that first season will be. With manga, on the other hand, the whole point is that you try and create as much of a story as possible. And then you basically, especially depending on which magazines you work for or you write for, you go on weekly releases. So you have like your one shot, and if it's good, 1 month later, okay, we'll sign you up. You will be part of this program. You write a new chapter, and it releases every week. The problem that I have with that, though, then is particularly with the writer's block thing, when you are not only forcing yourself, but there's an external force, an external factor that is forcing you to commit to writing week in, week out. I've noticed that a lot of stories kind of just divulge it into nothing.
Like fillers.
Yeah, not so much fillers, but more the fact that like you had something really, really strong in the beginning, and it was working for like 10 chapters, 20 chapters, 50 chapters. But then beyond that point, it kind of gets to the point where the writer just putting stuff on paper,
I see,
and there really is not much more direction. And that's why like sometimes like a lot of manga series get cut because it's kind of lost direction. It's kind of gone to the point now where you had this strong core of characters and story beats, but along the way it kind of just evaporates because you haven't thought beyond that 50 chapter mark. You haven't thought beyond that 100 chapter mark.
I mean, comic books, from Western media also has that same issue of like, okay, once you get your foot in the door, right? As in you have they accepted the magazine or the publisher accepts you as like, okay, you're going to be in our lineup. And then the objective, as you said, is not necessarily to finish the story that you have either envisioned or crafted, or maybe you didn't even think of that far ahead. But then your mission then now is to survive as long as you can without being axed.
The counter argument I have to that is, say for example, Marvel Comics, right? You have, the Amazing Spider-Man came out in like the 60s, I believe. And then afterwards, then you have like spin-offs of like the Miles Morales. You have like the Venom series. You have Secret Wars, where they have like the special Spider-Man suit, where like a lot of people confuse for the Venom suit. But each one of those stories is not necessarily written by the same writer, nor do you have the same artists working on them. So it's not so much that like whoever created it in the first place has to continue that legacy. They set the flag and everybody is following suit. Whereas with manga, a lot of times it's like a one-man, one-woman team. The person who's writing the story is writing it from beginning to end, no matter how many chapters they're writing. Shit, like One Piece has been written by Eiichiro Oda since 1997, and 27 years later, he's still writing the same story. There's got to be like a point where you just can't think of more shit. But because of how popular your craft is, how popular your creations are, that no matter what, the fans want you to make something.
I feel like unless you have a really open-ended concept, which I think One Piece does,
yeah,
you need an endpoint for a story. Stories need to end. And even for an ongoing series, you're going to end that story at some point, and the question is, can you start a new one? Can you take the template that you've been given and make something, but also like not just make a story, because you can make a story, it just sucks, right? That's what a filler is. It's a little episode that sucks, frankly.
Yeah, like it's superficial.
It's superficial. It's called filler because people don't like it. Like that's if it would be, it wouldn't
to
be
fill
filler.
the void, but nothing else more than that.
Exactly, right? And the thing is, when you have, especially I find this with anime, even though I'm not as experienced as you guys or well read, right? But I find this that every single anime I've ever watched had a promise in it. Like a lot of good stories, they had something they were trying to deliver. Like I'll use Attack on Titan as an example. The promise they have is
be careful of spoilers though.
No, this won't spoil it.
Cool.
The promise they have for Attack on Titan is, why is this happening? That's the question, right? Like, why is this set up the way it is? Why is this world the way it is? It does deliver, to be fair, eventually on that, right? But once it delivers on that, it needed something else. And there is. It's another arc right afterwards. So it's like, can you fulfill the promise you gave? And when you start a new story, can you give either a better promise or can you continue the same promise, right? There's an art to it.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that because another beloved property, probably Will's greatest of all time, is Tokyo Ghoul and Soyoshida, right? And
it's about vampire ghouls who have turned from humans, and the only way they can sustain their race of their beings is to consume humans. But then you have that gray area of, well, you have a society of ghouls, you have a society of humans. How do both of them survive together if one of them does not believe that the other should survive?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And the thing is that despite it's first of all, it's massively popular, but the issue is it's finished, right? So Tokyo Ghoul, the manga series is finished.
Done like almost 10 years ago.
The anime is finished, whether you like it or not, with Route A or whatever.
More like 7 years.
It's like fine, right? Yeah. So then his next piece of work, is called Trojan X. And then Will and I read when it first was announced because we were excited. It's like, oh, it's George R.R. Martin's going to be like, oh, his next book.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, a new series, like holy shit,
Yeah.
right? So then we read Trojan X, and it's just like, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, the two main characters, but obviously a different look, but they're the same thing.
The same, different monsters,
Yeah.
but the same concept.
Yeah, and then so then it becomes, as you said earlier, right? When you're delivering on that premise, it's like, okay, good, you finished Tokyo Ghoul, but now you're restarting. Look, who knows if it does deviate, but at least the manga volumes that I read, it's like the same shit.
I mean, you're done with the premise, right? Like,
Yeah. And that's why he is not successful with Trojan
To be
X
fair,
as much.
that was actually a very good mention as well of Tokyo Ghoul, because this is the other angle I wanted to go with, in that, as you mentioned, right, whenever you start, you also need to deliver on the promise of what you created in the first place. So you do have, more often than not, an ending in mind. However, getting to that ending is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And that's also why, like, specifically with anime and manga, there are so many top 10 lists of this series that actually had a good ending.
Yeah.
And that was like, we might have done a bit of like a talk on this before. I don't know if we've actually done an episode on it, but a lot of times, a lot of anime and manga kind of fall short of delivering that promise of the resolution, of being able to be like, I can look back on this anime or manga series and be like, yep, from start to finish, it told a completely solid story. I have no problems with it whatsoever. The fact that we even have those top 10 lists of series that actually had a good ending just shows that it's a bit of like an inherent issue within the industry, in which you have to continuously pump out as much content as you can. And so when you're just constantly like, oh, this story can finish in like 80 chapters. No. We need like 200 chapters, 300 chapters. So you got to start filling more stuff in. And as you start spaghettiing your way to that ending, you kind of then need to bring everyone back to that ending that you proposed in the first place. But because of how far you deviated from it, or like how loose things got, that the ending just doesn't slap. It just doesn't hit you anymore. And you kind of wonder what could have been if this thing was maybe done a little bit longer, or done a little bit shorter.
Or there was 1,000 people, at the concert, and then when it's your final concert, there's only 2 people that shows up.
Yeah.
So because they were promised that awesome concert at the end, but then everyone either lost interest, they went somewhere else, or for whatever multitude of reasons, right?
I think that's the problem with the business model, probably of the industry, because it's that you're meant to move as many issues as you can for as long as possible, right?
Right, yeah.
So if anything, you're disincentivized from creating a great ending. You're incentivized to keep something moving until you run out of steam. Whereas if you were paid for like, here, I don't know if this works in the industry, so you can tell me, but like if you were given a contract and you're like, you're going to do 10 episodes for us, you're going to do 10 issues for us.
Sure.
And that's it. And we pay you, and then that's it.
I mean,
and, like,
that's
you
how
have
the
to
anime thing goes, because
especially with originals.
Yeah, with anime originals, or even with like, Attack on Titan, for example, right? They're tasked with each season being made, and then sure, you could argue it is so successful that there's guaranteed going to be a season 2 and 3, and of course there was. But the issue is, at the moment, you're only contracted, at least publicly, per season. So whether you could say as much as it's guaranteed, like with Demon Slayer nowadays, right?
Well, to be fair, with Attack on Titan, the gap between season 1 and season 2 was 6 years.
Yeah.
But also, like, in that case, you're still incentivized to make new seasons.
Because you
So,
have,
like,
well,
I'm
that's-
saying,
like,
like, you would have to have a deadline,
it's
which
also
is like,
because
this
there's-
is it.
It's also
You don't
because
make
the
anything
manga
after
was
this.
still ongoing, so
Yeah.
you had the source material. Therefore, it's like you knew that from public interest that there was going to be something commissioned afterwards. It just you never know with production committees of whether or not someone's going to give you the money to do it.
I feel like it's the creator that has to sell the studios and the companies on it, right? Because it's the companies don't want that. The companies want to sell drugs, basically. Like, they want you to keep going. Whereas the creator's got to be like, no, I've got this really good story. It's going to have this epic ending, 2 seasons max, no matter what. I have the cachet for you to do this because I'm freaking name famous person here. You know what I mean? Like, they have to sell the studio. And that's a shame because, like, all of us as consumers of stories, we love a good ending. Like, it really sticks with you. It really makes a big difference.
I think And it's also a really scary endeavor to have essentially what is called a limited series rather than a serial series, right? When it's a limited series, like for example, there is an anime announced of an 8-volume series that Will and I will shill to no end, is called Orb. And you will really like, I think, the adaptation of Vish. It's about
stars and geometry
and heliocentrism. I'm not lying. Legit.
That's the idea that the sun is the center of the universe?
Yes. Versus the ancient belief of the earth is in the center of the universe.
Right.
And back in the day when the word blasphemy actually meant...
And heresy was the literal definition.
Oh, you're talking about stuff I like.
It's a very good series.
And, okay, so it's like
cool.
It's won a shit ton of awards. It got announced to have an anime adaptation, and we're pretty sure it will be like fully adapted. There's 8 volumes already finished.
Wow.
Isn't that the same with Pluto? Pluto also only had 8 volumes as well, right?
Oh, Pluto,
I
you
think I
did
had,
tell
like,
me
12.
to watch. You told me to watch Pluto.
Yeah, Pluto.
And they crushed everything in 8 one-hour-long episodes, right?
Yeah, something like that, 8 or 10. I think it's 10 episodes. So the thing is, though, that is like a really succinct beginning, middle, end. Or sometimes when there is a continuation in the manga, like it goes on for however many chapters, but then they took the ending of whatever that season is to kind of wrap it up as best of a resolution as you can, given the circumstances, such that you could get another season and justify a new adventure. But then we're wrapping it up, so at least everyone has some closure. But the issue there becomes, do you have the balls to do that? And I think a lot of people
it takes balls.
do not.
There's another angle with that too, because there's an insanely popular manga/anime series called Spy Family or Spy X Family, depending on how you want to say it.
I actually tried watching that and I couldn't get into it.
That's
Really?
completely fine.
Yeah. First episode I couldn't do it.
So the thing that I wanted to, as you mentioned,
all
right?
good.
As you mentioned, where like it's just a conveyor belt. You have all the source material. You want to continue making anime series to promote the original source, but with season 1, and this is not a spoiler at all because it's been out for a while now, they had a really, really amazing episode 10 or an episode 11, and they could have ended it there, but they were commissioned to do 12 episodes. So the 12th episode was just a complete 180 in terms of ambiance, in terms of like tension, in terms of thrill, because it was like the height. Oh shit, some big bad's coming. Some really, really chaotic shit's about to go down. Why don't we go to an aquarium?
Yeah. And to be clear, to be also very clear, the aquarium adventure, so to speak, or misadventure, is very faithful to the source material of the manga, because it literally happens after the conclusion of what just occurred, which was also done masterfully well in the manga and in the anime. But when you're commissioned to do 12 episodes, it's like, couldn't you like stretch it out slightly so then you end on the resolution? Why all of a sudden it's like, let's have a bonus stage, but have that bonus stage be the fucking aquarium?
But that's also like how, as you probably would allude to as well, like how rigid the industry is, in that if you have to do 12 episodes and you manage to get your magnum opus on the 10th or 11th episode, I don't care. You still have to do one more episode. You got to follow through on our contract, and there's no way out of it.
And I think it's really interesting because Will and I have this familiarity with the industry, for better or for worse, right? With the podcast and just our investment in the industry. And you,
just our observations.
And as you, as not necessarily an outsider, but
I'm definitely an outsider.
But you still appreciate the medium.
I do.
Every once in a while, right?
You've also been through that, the production process, the creative process, like just being able to, put pen on paper and deliver a story as well, right? Like you probably know, like if you wanted to deliver something, that it's best to be done on your own terms. Right? You want to be able to have a say in terms of like, if you're going to start something and you're going to end something, that you have full control of how you bring your audience from point A to point B and not be affected by, execs telling you, no, you got to bring the ending like further down the road. Because,
or you need to insert XYZ because that's hot right now or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, they say you either write for yourself or you write for your audience, but I think there's a third reality nowadays, and that's you write for the suits. Like,
right.
you write for the people that have hired you. and you write to like make as much money. Because the thing with a novel, first of all, it's incredibly competitive and hard to get your novel published. But like,
despite it being very easy, right?
Well,
so to speak.
The actual process, anyone can do it. Like, you just get a word processor and you're pretty much solid, right? But like, what was I going with this? So the thing is that you have these serial writers online that write web novels.
Yes.
And they just keep writing.
Yes.
And their business model is the same as these animes do. They're like, we have to keep going all the time, but they get to do it on their terms. And that tends to lead to better stories, at least based on like a mutual friend of ours who loves web novels, right?
Yes.
Who I hope you have on this show at some point.
Oh,
Gonna
he's
plug
lined up.
him.
He's lined
Oh,
up.
Yeah,
He's
your
lined up.
name
Plug
dropping
that
him. Yeah, he
preview
this friend
the man
personally talked to me, be like, "Hey, so I heard Vish is on the podcast." I'm like, "Yeah, we'll get everyone on there eventually." Yeah. so shout outs to you guys. You know who you are. But yeah, like the thing is, when external factors or more factors start coming into the mix, it complicates things because that's the natural
it limits your
progression of
freedom.
things.
It limits your which can be a good thing to have constraints, because you probably give yourself constraints to tell a good story.
I mean,
but
it's
it
also
can be
it's also
counterproductive.
financial incentive.
It is all financial.
I mean-
the thing is, being a creative person and trying to make a living is hard. And I'm imagining for all those manga people that do well, there's going to be like 10 who just like tank on their first manga.
No,
Or
not 10.
100,
Think like 100,
or
1,000,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
We actually just did an episode talking about the state of one particular publisher where in the year of 2023 and 2024
No, 2022 till now, yeah.
like legitimately I think it was like 75 maybe even 80% of stuff that was just finished by the first volume.
There was 13
Oof.
series that premiered. I think it was the number 13 that premiered and got axed within like 2 years.
I mean, that's brutal. That's actually really really brutal.
And this could be for a multitude of reasons, whether or not it sells well, whether or not it was good, like, or politics. Who knows the real reason, right? We can only give our takes or our perspective from the outside.
Yeah.
And one of the sticking points that Will and I kind of like want to emphasize was the reality is this, but it also sucks. Like, even if you come out with a subpar product as, you know, podcasters or content creators or whatever, we have the right to say what we feel about it. As long as we don't,
we can continue doing it as well.
as long as we don't like threaten other people or like, you know, like do that terrible shit. Like, we don't condone any of that, but we have a right to an opinion when you publish something into the public sphere, right? But that is not to undermine the effort that probably that person went through. Like, those serializations that got axed, those 13, are probably legitimately good people trying their best, you know, chasing deadlines, like literally losing arms and legs just to get that spotlight.
Also,
And
they probably
couldn't.
appealed to some people. Like, they probably had fans.
But
like, they probably
unfortunately,
people who like that story.
Unfortunately, they were all just cogs in the machine.
Like,
And the
why does
machines-
Bokurano exist? Because,
Oh, yo.
like, I mean, talking about stuff that didn't get axed,
Yo.
like, how is that a thing? That is
Listen.
whatever the opposite of an antidepressant is.
Oh god, oh man, I actually have
Sorry to
not,
derail
I have
a little
not
bit there.
read or watched Bokurano.
Oh,
but
God, you gotta
I
watch it, man.
know what it's about.
Dude, we had a Vish, we had a conversation about Bokurano and Evangelion.
I like have this this respect for Bokurano as like a storyteller, where I just look at that and I'm like, how did they get me to care so goddamn much about these people that don't exist and then break my heart over and over again? Because, like, the thing is, when you have things like deaths and sad, like, no spoilers, but when you have like tragedy occur in a series, the natural inclination for most watchers is to harden their heart. Like, you care less because you're like, oh, I know what's coming, I'm not going to get invested, I don't care about this character.
it's
And
a
yet,
defense mechanism,
the
right?
that sick man got me to care episode after episode, and it just was unrelenting. And it was amazing. Like, as a storyteller, I'm in awe of Bokurano.
Yeah, it's also really interesting that you say that because, you know, a bit of a foreshadowing for Will and I, but we will be reviewing a manga that we actually talked about before you arrived, Vish, called The Darwin Incident. And how we feel about that series is, at least I can just say a little bit now, is that it made me feel immensely uncomfortable. But at the same time, it's really good. So it's like this weird, you know, dichotomy or disparity of like, on one hand, I think it's great. It's like watching Schindler's List.
I mean,
It's
that's
you
like
can tell
art.
it's a
Like
good.
you're talking about art, man. Like if it can make you uncomfortable, which is like supposedly the thing you're not meant to feel.
If a
nowadays,
creation can create conversation afterwards,
and I mean that sounds amazing.
And at the same time, like, I feel like it should exist. It's great, but also it's like, I don't know if I want to recommend it to people because it's like the feeling it gave me is so uncomfortable, and it's deliberate.
I mean,
and it's good.
In the anime world as well, there's the issue with Grave of the Fireflies.
Yeah, Grave of the
Oh
Fireflies.
yeah, I've heard the reputation of Grave of the Fireflies.
I've watched
it. Makes
it.
you
Don't
not want to
watch
watch
it.
it.
Don't watch it. It's the only anime movie manga
It's amazing.
series
It's fucking great.
that
but
I have.
don't watch it.
On my anime list, the database, I have like over thousands of entries. It's the only one I do not put in there
Out of curiosity, why do you say don't watch it without spoilers?
because it will break your heart.
But isn't that worth watching?
No, well,
Because like, see, there's like an assumption there where you're like,
To be fair.
don't watch this because
no.
it's
When I
going
say
to
like
make
don't
you
watch it,
feel
it's
bad.
like Bokurano. It's like don't watch it, but watch it.
Yeah.
Consume
Okay,
it,
I
but
hear
don't
what you're
consume
saying.
it.
So you're being tongue in cheek.
do it in your own risk, but you should do it. But like it's gonna suck, but in a good kind of way, you know. And then that it's like, and then it just like spirals into this like I'm trying to tell you yes, but no, and yes. And
I mean, some people want to get their heart broken. Like tragedies exist for a reason, right?
Right.
Horror exists for a reason.
I
Like,
mean,
sometimes you want.
It's kind of like, I mean, one of my personal favorite movies it was a two-parter done by Clint Eastwood, which is Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima. And Letters from Iwo Jima, it's centered on World War II.
Yeah.
Right, the initial U.S. involvement in the Second World War, and then the aftermath, or at least the spiraling of the aftermath from the Pearl Harbor nuclear bombs, and when people start actually realizing that the war is about to end, whether or not it was the outcome they wanted. Letters from Iwo Jima is a very powerful movie, but I am, like Jason, very hesitant to recommend it to people because it will break you. It is hard. It is harrowing. It is full of despair and sorrow. But if you can muster the strength and the mental fortitude to watch it, it is art. But goddamn, it was one of the most depressing things I've ever seen.
On
getting
that
a bit big. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, getting a big picture. This is because of a conversation I had with someone recently about like dopamine addiction, and I almost feel like culturally we are supposed to only recommend things that make you feel good and that are like they hit those notes. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like it's like become a thing now.
Well, that's why in anime and manga there is a genre called slice of life. There is a subgenre of slice of life called iyashike, right?
Yeah, where it's nothingness, it's numbness. You just turn your brain off.
It's
and,
rejuvenating.
it's
meant
just happiness.
Yeah, it's just where there's zero conflict.
dopamine.
It's just imagine you as a salaryman coming home from work at 10 p.m. You've only grabbed convenience store food, and you're gonna sit down. What are you gonna watch while you eat your food? Oh, this really heartwarming, no stakes, no drama story about these cute girls going camping and making s'mores.
Or like a couple discovering that they actually fell in love with each other because they have a shared interest. Where, for example, How to Grill Our Love.
Right.
It's a manga series about two a man and a woman who fall in love with each other because they both love to barbecue.
I mean, that's not that. That doesn't sound so bad to me.
No, that's great.
They're both, and when I'm talking about
healing.
Yuru-ken, it's healing.
Yeah,
it's healing.
So when you were saying earlier about like you can't, it's all about the dopamine. It's all about you can't recommend.
I was
quote-unquote
actually
bad things.
I was actually thinking more of things that give you a bit of a high, like because they have like a lot of like epic moments, or they have a lot of like
it's why
those,
people
oh shit
That's
moments
why that's why shonen action is a thing.
Yes, that's a better example.
Because
Shonen action
it's like
is
blood pumping, right?
Exactly.
It's like Attack on Titan.
Even though
when
it's the same
Levi
tropes.
fucking zooms through like Spider-Man, you're just like,
and then
that person,
you tell people that was awesome. That was
person
hell
broke
yeah.
through adversity. That person, fought against the odds. That person became number one. That gave me inspiration to continue doing what I want to do and be better. Whereas
Gurren Lagann did that for me.
Yeah.
Gurren Lagann was one of those shows where I was in the pits of despair. Like, no joke. Like, I was in like this bad place mentally, and my friend randomly said like, "Hey, I just watched this show. It's kind of cool. You should watch it." And then with without a shadow of exaggeration, changed my life. Because it not only is like the most important anime series of all time for me, it also lifted me up from a spot that I thought was unsalvageable. But that kind of personal connection is something I can't really describe or say it will be applicable to literally anyone else.
It's the same with me with Tatami Galaxy, like one of my favorite novels / anime series. It was very much as pivotal and life-changing for me as it was for you with Gurren Lagann, but I can't give you Tatami Galaxy and be like, you will feel the exact same way I did.
I think Tatami Galaxy is great, and you watch Gurren Lagann, you think it's great, but it's not like the pinnacle. It's not like the S tier, right? And same thing with you, Vish, because I know, for example, we both read Dune.
Yeah.
The original sci-fi novel. I read it ages ago with Neuromancer and everything. I like Dune a lot, but you hold Dune and Red Rising in like a higher regard.
Yeah.
Or you know, people liking Star Wars and me not necessarily not liking it, but not like in like a personal connection. You know what I mean?
It's all about the personal connection, isn't it?
Are you getting cold by any chance?
Nah.
We
We
can
turn off the AC.
That's fine.
Oh, okay.
I just do this because I don't know.
It's you wanted to assert your dominance.
Oh, I see.
This is like the opposite of that. This is, for those that can't see, because you can't see into our room, I'm crossing my arms and hunched forward like some sort of like.
To be fair,
nervous
from
homeless
a
guy.
psychological standpoint, whenever you cross your arms, it's supposed to represent you're not open. You're not. You don't want to reciprocate conversation. Whereas actually, you're talking a lot in the microphone.
Yeah.
So it's like
That's why I'm crossing my arms, man. If I unleash these arms, you guys won't get a word in.
no,
so.
that's no.
Yeah,
It's
You tell me to
completely
unleash
fine.
my arms.
Yeah,
You
no,
want me
it's
to put
completely
these arms down.
But that actually, like, going back on when you were saying, like, you want to represent, you want to, like, you recommend things that are, dopamine highs. You want to sort of,
Or not
chase,
do that.
You
Like, I
want to
feel like,
chase
yeah.
the dragon and, like, go on an exhilarating journey. But at the same time, you don't want to recommend the stuff that puts you in the bottom, in terms of like rock bottom emotionally, where like things are like just destitute and broken and shit.
But like, if you're like actually really depressed, sometimes that stuff's really cathartic.
Yeah.
Because you actually see a reflection of how you feel.
I mean,
and it makes you feel less lonely, and it makes you feel like, oh, I'm not just looking at the world in a twisted way. There are people that make Bokurano. The world kind of can be awful and tragic. Sorry, can I just go into one thing about Bokurano?
Go for it.
The thing about Bokurano that elevates it for me isn't that I joke and I say it's nothing but like unrelenting misery. It's not. The thing that makes Bokurano amazing is it's about sacrifice. And it's about the value of life. Like, it's really about like the contrast between this is such an awful tragedy that happens over and over again, and yet it's necessary.
And yet they do it.
And they do it. They choose to do it. And
Look,
they're
we're
like,
being cryptic here,
it's heroic.
but you'll understand
if you seriously watch that.
Like when the premise of this whole cycle thing that Vish and I are alluding to, when they reveal the cycle, it's just like you will just like unpause. You just pause and be like, oh my god, they went there.
Holy crap.
And then when they execute on that idea, and then they're still knowing all of what is about to happen, they'll be like, yeah, I'll still do it.
It's like it's heroic, but also if you're like depressed yourself, or if you're in a dark place, it can give you hope, because the premise is that life is kind of brutal, but you can still do something with it, and that can really connect with you when you're in a dark place. I'm not just depressed, but like just in a dark place. Like, there's beauty to that.
Okay, so when
also the creator's not very like he himself had a lot of mental health issues, right?
To be fair,
a lot of
freaking creative people, frankly.
there is like a huge subset of anime and mangas that actually now either are like semi-autobiographical or like are more
reflective of the person.
Yeah, for example, there's a well-known one that Will loves a lot called Welcome to the NHK that is old school, but I think a lot of people admire and love.
It deals with a lot of like mental illness and health, and essentially how to go through life whilst you have these debilitating circumstances. There's another one which is, I think it was My Lonely Experience.
Yeah.
My Lonely Lesbian Experience.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm literally gonna Google her name, but then it's like the My whatever collection is like My Alcoholic Escapism Adventure and stuff, and it's just this woman who literally just talks about her life, and it's like the most saddest, heroic, self-reflective journey. And I love the series, but every time I like finish it, it's always like that was like awesome masterpiece. Actually, I shouldn't say it's awesome because it's just really good. And then afterwards, I'll be like, bro, I need to take a shower, a cold shower, and like wrap in a ball.
This is what I'm getting to is like the fact that we don't feel fully comfortable recommending those things versus like the dopamine hit, right?
Yeah.
And that's problematic. Like I don't think that's a good thing about our culture right now. Like I think it's actually better to. I mean, I was very close there to going on a long rant, and I stopped
sorry.
myself.
To be fair.
Before we go, just to give credit where credit is due, my lesbian experience with loneliness and like my wandering warrior experience, all that is written and published by a woman called Kabi Nagata. Just so that we give credit where credit's due. Thank you.
Dope.
So that actually is a good point where you were saying that like we tend to recommend the good stuff and not so much not the bad stuff, but the stuff that you don't necessarily equate to like happiness, right? But there was a period in like the late 2010s when this is from a music angle when a lot of bedroom or like one person music creators started creating a subset within like lo-fi music, which was a bit more on like the depression side,
Like the vaporwave?
there was a bit of vaporwave, there was a bit of chill hop, but a lot of it was very much like so there's an artist that I really like called In Love with the Ghost, and they are, I don't know what their pronouns are, so I'm just gonna say they, because I believe that they were a French male in transition. I don't want to go that far into it because I don't want to misrepresent them. But a lot of the music they create is very much like not so much self-deprecating, but self-discovery in terms of like a lot of the titles were like, hey, I met you one time and I haven't saw you again, but we should totally grab coffee. And that was like the title of one of their songs. And it was like a very beautiful but very melancholic, like just from like 2.5 minutes it told like a full story of their experience of loneliness, romanticism, the need to feel loved and feel warmth, and it was all just done within 2.5 minutes.
And like I was just talking to someone about this the other day because they started telling me that they've been listening to contemporary music, like contemporary rap, because I'm like at that age where like I don't discover new music as much anymore.
Me neither.
And they introduced me to something called Down Bad. Like I think it's called Down Bad. I might have just like revealed myself to sound
mean
like
a slang term?
Yeah, it's a genre of music. Yeah. It's what the Zoomers love these days, and it's all super depressing. And it's like
because you're down bad.
Well, yeah, you're down bad, but also like kind of you know without going too far
or like
into it,
core is a thing. I think mental core. It's just like
yeah, if you look at the freaking world today, I don't know about you guys, I'm not always filled with a ton of optimism without going into it, right? So it like makes
I mean Will and I literally escape into the 2D realm, okay?
So I mean like not to be a bummer, but then you could argue, is it better to then escape and like watch the dopamine hits, or is it better to embrace reality and like find things that resonate with the way the world is, so you don't suppress those feelings?
You bring a very good point. Yeah. Which specifically for like anime and manga readers,
isekais.
It's like it's the escapism. It's the fact that your life sucks or the world around you is falling apart, and so you just want to go back into your safe space, turn on the TV or a laptop, and just watch something and delve yourself into a alternate reality where things are better.
Yeah, and then going off of that, the subgenre, or I guess it wouldn't be a subgenre now, it's like an actual like big thing now, is the isekai, the reincarnation genre that I'm sure you've heard of, right? It's like
that's like the new world sort of
it's like the Sword Art Onlines,
yeah,
where it could be you are living and then you transport into like a video game, Avatar, World of Warcraft, MMORPG, but it's like another life, or you die because of a truck,
and you get
reincarnated, and you get a second chance at life, but then you retain all of your prior knowledge in your past life, so then you're basically overpowered in this life. So it's like a escapism fantasy. And this is like the biggest genre.
That's the ultimate form of escape. Like
that's why
a little bit weird.
And,
like,
and that's why so many people recommend isekais, and that's why like every season there's
some people recommend it, right?
Oh yeah, of course, but not some. A lot. There's a reason why like every season, like 25% of them are isekais.
Yeah,
are reincarnations, are another world series.
And Will doesn't like a lot of it, and I don't like a lot of it. But then out of nowhere, there will be like There's one. Okay, Vish, you're gonna have to brace yourself. There is an anime / manga / light novel of a series, isekai series, that Will and I kind of like a lot, and it is the main character reborn as a vending machine.
Yeah, I had to brace myself. You're right. I
Yeah.
should have held on to the table.
And reborn as a vending machine is actually not as dumb. It is dumb as a premise, but it's actually executed in a way that we were both pleasantly surprised. But at the same time, you get the massive amounts of like, oh, reborn now as the seventh prince of...
Reincarnated as a sword.
Yeah, reincarnated as a sword.
So going a little bit weird, like, so Plato had this theory about art, and he basically fucking hated it. Like he basically said that art and poetry are lies and they misrepresent reality. And his whole argument was we should be understanding reality, we shouldn't be running away from it, basically, right?
Right.
And so, like, thinking about all this, thinking about isekai, I don't mean to piss at anyone's Cheerios. Like, if you like something, go for it, right?
Sure.
But like, he would be like, he would like eat his own shit and choke to death on this, you know? Like,
Yeah.
he would be like, this is so far removed from reality, because everyone who is reborn, the reason they have their personality and memories is because they were on a trajectory defined by all the things that happened to them and the culture they were in.
Right.
And they've
prior.
decided to get rid of all that because they don't want to embrace the real world. It's literally like, even though, because there's a reason you think what you think, but they're like, no, we don't want to deal with that. We're just, although I imagine some isekais actually tell us more about the character by going to another world. Like, I feel like that. Do they? Like, I feel like
in
someone
this
must try to
massive
do
genre
that.
now. It's now,
Yeah, so, okay,
now it's
so
not
yeah,
massive.
yeah.
There's
It's so
always
big
going to
that
be
there's gonna
shades
be-
of
yeah.
really good stuff.
There's going to be different
like,
stuff.
to
right?
give you examples, like there's the one which is person dies, gets reincarnated in the world, but they get a new skill. And then because of that skill plus the prior knowledge they have, they are extremely overpowered. There's also another one which is more video game based, like for example, My Otome Life.
Yeah, the villainous.
Yeah.
There's a subgenre of isekais called the villainous subgenre.
So imagine it's almost like a dating simulation kind of game where you are a male or female character, and then like the countersex is like there's like 7 different like male or female counterparts, and depending on the path you choose, you then build the romance of that particular person. But there's also a big bad in the background. That particular villainous subgenre is you are now the villainous or the villain in that game, and you know how the story goes, and it's up to you whether you want to change your fate or continue along this path. And that's like another form of escapism.
It's a wish fulfillment, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
It's because you play a video game, you wonder what it's like to actually be in the video game because you want to get away.
But then it's technically subverted because instead of
Yeah.
reincarnating as the main character that revolves around the whole story, you reincarnate as the big bad. So then you're like,
that's cool.
well, I don't want to die. So what I'm going to do is, because I know all the plots, all the characters, or I remember everything by heart, I am going to then therefore change the literal meta universe.
That's still a
the
power
lore.
trip, right? Because
And I love that subgenre.
It's like a just different kind of power.
You
It's
control the
meta plot
narrative,
power.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your superpower. There's actually a superhero character in Marvel, Gwenpool, who does that. Like, her power is she reads all the comic books and she ends up in the comic book world.
Wait, Gwenpool, as in
Gwenpool.
Stacy Gwen and
Gwen
Deadpool.
No, it's a different Gwen. It's like it's not Gwen Stacy. Her name's also Gwen, but
Damn it.
yeah, I know. I thought that too. But basically, Gwenpool, her whole thing is she's in our world and she reads all the Marvel comic books, and then she's transported into the Marvel comic book world. Her only superpower is that she knows about comic books and she can do things like pull herself out of the frame and like jump to another frame.
Oh, hence the
like,
Deadpool thing, because it's fourth wall breaking.
the ultimate fourth wall
I
breaking. But
see.
also she has like for example, she avoided doing missions because she's not an important character, so she knows she's gonna die.
That's hilarious.
It's pretty funny.
That
It's,
I like
it's
that.
actually, you should check it out. I think you'd
Oh,
like it. I
damn.
think you'd like it. But like the idea is that's a superpower, right? So these villainous things are still superpowers. It's still a power trip because your power is just meta plot.
But at the same time, Vish, going back to like serialization and limited series, I'm gonna mention something that Will and I definitely talked about, and I think you will be like, "Oh, bro."
Just to sort of keep track of time, we're on the 1 hour and 20-minute mark.
Sure.
We've actually talked a lot. I would love this. This is
Vish.
amazing.
It's been great.
Do
Thanks
you
for having
remember
me.
Vertigo?
Oh, the comic book
Do you
imprint?
remember
Yeah.
Why the Last Man?
Oh, yeah,
Do
yeah,
you
yeah. They made a
remember
TV show.
Transpolitan?
Oh, hell yeah.
Those were like
Hunter S.
limited
Thompson.
series. That is not like, the 400th
Yep.
issue of Ultimate X-Men, right?
Yep.
and or like Morning Glory, Saga, and all those like really well-known series that are not necessarily serial, but more like it's going to tell a story that you can at least envision that there's a beginning, middle, and end, and maybe there is some fluff here and there, but mostly it is like condensed, contained. Sorry,
tons, yeah.
And it's no more. Vertigo doesn't exist anymore.
And you could argue it's because they couldn't make money. Like
exactly.
I don't know the details because I'm sure there's some whole
I'm sure
reason
there is
behind
too.
it. But yeah, it doesn't sell the way that like just perpetual stories that don't end. You just buy them every day.
Yeah, or the dopamine thing. It's
the
like
dopamine hit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, like, and that just like is in every medium, anime and manga is no different. And I don't know what solution is there. I don't know if I even want a solution.
I think it comes down to, I think when we say something is great or something's really good, what we sometimes mean is they do the dopamine hit, but they also tell a hell of a story, and they make you think, and they make you feel, and they make you care.
Right.
Like, it does both, right?
But what if...
But there are those very shallow also, like, I mean, this is a bit judgy, but like Shonen Jump.
Yeah,
stuff,
right? There's no avoiding that.
There's no avoiding that, yeah.
And a lot of the audience, as far as I understand, are like teenagers.
Right? It's
like,
slowly shifted to more young
like
adults,
young adults, YA, right? Like not that's like, I feel like the older you get, it's a generalization, or the more mature you get, the more you basically get overdosed on that stuff, and you're not as into it anymore because you've had your fill.
Yep. That there's a reason why Jason and I don't really recommend a whole lot of shonen actions anymore, because we grew up on that stuff like 20 years ago.
Yeah, we've had our time.
Yeah, and then when you quote unquote graduate from the shonen genre, the next demographic is actually called the seinen genre,
the young adult,
young adult version. And there's so many of these seinen mangas that are like Will and I really like. For example, one that Will kind of went all in on was called The Fable, and it's about like a hitman. Okay, it's like what's that Bill Hader show, Harry?
Oh, Barry,
right? So think of it kind of like that, but like black comedy kind of thing. But it got an anime, and I would argue that it did not do the manga source justice. It was like a really okay, fine adaptation.
This is a good topic to talk about, because maybe like 6-7 months ago we were talking about a topic which was what would be the next big genre in anime or manga that would be like, because so there was like shonen action, there was fantasy, there was isekai, kind of following in the fantasy. We were thinking about like what would be like the next decade defining genre, right? Because you had like mechas in like the 80s and 90s. Then you had like the more splatter, the more art house with like the Cowboy Bebops and Samurai Champloo's in the late 90s.
And the science fiction cyberpunk.
Those are my favorites.
Oh yeah. You had the sci-fi cyberpunk,
Ghost in the Shell. Obviously Cyberpunk Edge Runners is massive now, but excluding that, like, when was the last cyberpunk thing that you remember?
So the one genre that I believe Jason brought up was not so much a genre, but more a demographic of manga, which was seinen, more young adult stuff, right? Because as we've grown older, we wanted to be more into like more hard-hitting sort of real-world questions, more sort of social commentary kind of types. And there has been like a recent plethora of anime adaptations of these comics, of this particular genre. However, for some reason they just don't work well. And I'm trying to figure out what the reason for it is, because if you look at like live action, like a lot of like American or European TV shows where they kind of delve deeper in, like for example, like Dark. Right?
Yeah.
Or like
is that the German? Is it German?
Yeah, Baby German. Reindeer.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about when it comes.
But you cannot see a Baby Reindeer or a Dark in anime form, and I'm wondering if it's because of the medium. But then you go back onto TV shows like Invincible.
Yeah.
Where it is meant to be a bit more like over the top, but like more serious than, your standard superhero cartoon.
Yeah.
Your superhero animation. There's a lot of like more adult centric, and by adult I mean more serious, not like young kiddie. Oh, like I've got superpowers, I'm going to take over the world kind of thing. It's more like, yo, you got superpowers, but there's consequence.
Yeah, I was just thinking that like there's more consequences,
right? And so therefore, like, you've seen it succeed in Western animation, but it for some reason does not work well with Japanese animation or Asian animation,
I wonder
Or
if
at
it's
least
a
they've not
cultural
figured
thing.
out
Yeah.
the process yet, right?
And I'm wondering if, like you said, it might be just down to the industry in which this is the medium that we feed to teenagers and young adults, trying to give them that dopamine rush.
So they're not prepared. They're not ready for the next thing. Or
Right.
They're
And-
not. They're not wanting it even.
And as like an outsider looking into, the anime, manga, and all that industry, that subsect of the entertainment medium, like, what do you see?
I don't think I'm qualified to answer. I think anything I would say would be like a massive judgment call
I think-
because
but-
I don't
but
know
no,
it well
But,
enough.
I think that's the point.
This goes back onto what you were saying about how
I do have an opinion on this, but
Yeah,
it's like a
let's hear it.
vast generalization.
That's-
I don't know if it's accurate, so I want to throw it
No,
at you guys.
I think part of the reason why
I
we are
think
ready for this.
if I'm looking at a Western Asian divide, and I'm looking at like what's the biggest divide, and when Asian I mean like Japanese, like East Asian style. It is the ability and the propensity to criticize the status quo. So in Western society, it's basically become beyond the norm to like be anti-authoritarian and like actually criticize social structures, political structures, everything at all, like everything and anything. Like it's gotten so bad it's a culture war, right?
Right.
Whereas I feel like it's much less the case in East Asian society, and it's like it makes people more uncomfortable, and it makes them like more maybe afraid even to do it. And the problem with that is when it comes to the real life consequences, you only have criticisms of society that lead, you only have real life consequences when you admit that things aren't great.
Yeah,
and you look at it why it isn't great.
I think that, being East Asian, right? I think we could comfortably say that there is an element of uniformity and conformity.
Yes, that's a better way of putting
yeah,
it. It's the
and
conformity.
sweeping things under the rug,
Yes.
reading in between the lines.
And even if there is like an anime series or like a story that comes out of East Asia that kind of like goes against a particular element of whether it's a power above. I don't want to say like a government specifically, but it could be like any sort of hierarchical
Authority,
structure,
like,
right?
yeah.
It's always kind of microscoped on one particular issue, and it's fixing that particular issue whilst ignoring the grander scheme of things.
because that would be to admit things
Exactly,
are in a bad
that's a bit
shape.
too radical.
And I bet that it's partially, I don't think it's down to creators as much. I think it's down to the industry because it's
also-
down to the gatekeepers.
And also cultural norms too.
And cultural
yeah,
norms. And
I also think there is just an element of no one is interested in that conversation / discussion.
They're not ready for it.
or we don't know
whether you
because
say
unless
they're
you
not
feed
ready
it to
for it.
people, we don't know, right?
We don't know.
Or-
That's the issue.
Yeah.
Whether it's because no one wants to talk about it, but everyone wants to talk about it, they just don't want to say it, or they're not ready for it,
Yeah.
or they just it's just not on their agenda or on their mind, right?
Yeah.
At whichever way you give reasons to, it is undeniable though that the way that anime and manga and East Asian media is concerned is like focused on a branch of issues that is not really representative of the issues that is tackled in like Western TV series or what they want to address. And
Yeah.
maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe it's not, I don't know.
But I think it's up to creators, and I think they do this to try and push those boundaries as
Yeah.
much as. And if you look at, say, anime stories today compared to like 20 years ago, I
The
mean
good
things
old
like
days.
no, I was gonna say that like things like LGBTQ, like you literally were talking about what was the name of the story that
My
woman-
Lonely Experience.
My
of
lonely
My
like
Lonely
can you
Lesbian
imagine
Experience,
that
yeah.
wouldn't have existed freaking 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, maybe 20 years ago.
To be
I
fair,
think,
that
20 years
series actually came out 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's why I said like
So,
20 years ago.
But actually, no. So you had things like
Okay, you're gonna get into like my realm of expertise with like
Well, I think
S-class and everything.
Maybe that's I don't. Maybe I'm not giving the right example.
No,
but my point is that it progresses.
But there
I
has,
imagine.
there has been like a massive shift in terms of what is shown to people in the grand scheme of things. Because think about the fact that Ghost in the Shell came out 30 years ago, and it was like questioning the human condition, getting into the real philosophical stuff. You don't really see much of that nowadays.
And that's kind of one of the reasons I don't watch as much anime, to be honest. Like maybe I'm sure it exists somewhere, but like I just don't know
if it
I just don't
exists
know
that
where
much
to-
in anime.
I don't know
think
where
it
it
exists
is.
a lot, maybe in manga form, but no one dares to do it into anime form.
the
But the
gatekeepers.
problem because people were doing that 30 years ago, right? And now is like the time when people start questioning social constructs, the way that certain hierarchical powers have control over like a lower class or a lower subsect. This would be like the prime breeding ground for such material, yet you don't see it anymore.
Yeah, there is a limited manga series now that I'm thinking about, like what we just discussed in like the past 2 minutes. There was a manga series that's like 3 or 4 volumes called Boys Run the Riot.
Yes.
That I've read from beginning to end in one sitting. And it is about transgenderism. And it is one of those things where it is such a powerful, like, tale. But after I read it, I cannot deny that there's a part of me that's like, this will probably never get an anime.
Yeah.
No one will ever tell this story.
Super highly rated. I wouldn't even say a cult following anymore. It's in the zeitgeist.
And it's gotten a shit ton of awards. But then good luck trying to get an anime adaptation. And to be honest, and if I'm being it's a sad thing that I'm about to say this, but if I was an executive, so to speak, if I had a producer, I don't know if I would take that bet of turning into an anime.
I'd rather put my money on a popcorn flick.
Because that would be guaranteeing
that's
revenue.
safe, right? That's the safe call.
So, and I don't blame businessmen doing businessmen stuff, but on the other hand, it's
I do.
it sucks though, right?
No,
Screw those people.
I mean, like, how many times have we, like, on this podcast gone over news stories and talked about, big ABC conglomerate has now absorbed and taken all the IPs of small indie creator studio house and now has dissolved the studio, right?
Will, I can't believe you said this. We're going to do an episode on IP handovers in the future. Did you know about Studio 3 Hertz?
What about them? Are they being bought out?
Wait, you don't know?
No, I haven't. I don't look at the news.
Studio 3 Hertz is gone.
They they went bankrupt.
Yeah. And all their IPs got bought out to A1 Pictures. So Gun Gale Online 2 is technically now belonging. It's just like divvied up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it just happened like days ago, Vish. And it's just like,
but this
crazy.
This happens with game studios too.
Oh God, it's an absolute shit show with video game studios. Yeah, it's
and
awful.
layoffs and
or
was
you
it
make
corporate?
a game and then you're done, and like the crunch time. It's awful. Like, it's actually horrible.
And you see a lot of that also in. You know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna say it just happens a lot in entertainment nowadays. Period. The industry, in terms of the work culture, the crunch, the layoffs. It just is happening everywhere.
Yeah, creators get kind of screwed. The one thing, though, that I will say about manga, looking at it as an outsider, that is kind of an optimistic take, is what's pretty cool about it is it's usually, from what I can tell, the work of one person. One person makes a manga, and maybe it becomes an anime, maybe it becomes sensational. They don't need to collaborate with a whole team of people. They don't need a massive budget. They do need exposure and marketing, right? But it's not like making a film or a TV series, right? It's a lot more like making a novel, but it has that visual element, which is really hard and really skillful to do. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of empowering. Like, that's cool that they can do that. Even though, like you guys said, for every success story, there's like 100 people that didn't make it or that were axed after one issue. But there is still something to that you can, because whenever you guys talk about anime, and I really am a layperson when it comes to anime, whenever you tell me that there's this series and that series and they're about this thing or that, I'm always kind of blown away. And maybe that's my prejudice, but I'm always like, what a huge variety. Like, there's a massive, and it might not all become the most popular, and it might all become the most addictive, which is a shame, but it is still, people are telling a very wide variety of stories and topics, and that's down to the fact that you can have individuals tell an entire story.
I mean, don't you see that with just writing in general?
Novels,
though?
you do. I think you do with novels.
Yeah.
But, like, not with as much, like things like TV shows are getting better too, but like not as much. You don't have the empowering of a single person. Like,
I mean, like, you know, TV shows nowadays are a bit more like biopics, a bit more like, based on a true story. I think, like, you're kind of running the well dry in terms of what you can put on
got to
screen.
pitch, you got to, like, it's like a whole thing, like,
but it comes down to consumer interest too, right? Like,
well,
especially,
I always believe,
especially with TV as a medium.
I honestly believe that people are, like, you either chase something that's already happened or you have the guts to make something new. And, like, a lot of people just chase what's already happened. and they define what people like by doing that. Whereas people who are brave and try to take risks might find out that people actually want something. They just don't know what they want.
Yeah,
or they
until
just
they see
don't
it.
know what. Like Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
Like no one is gonna be like, spoilers, but come on, that they're gonna kill a bunch of main characters and that the bad guys are basically gonna win for a lot of the series.
Yeah.
People are like, why would you want that? It's like, no, people freaking needed that. Like they loved it, both as a novel and as a TV show. So it's like people don't always know what they want or what these businesses are interested in the safest bet to make the most money in many cases, not in all cases, right? And that is detrimental to the creative process.
I mean, it would be crazy to say that like money doesn't rule the world.
Well, I know. I'm getting to the point where I'm just like, oh, it's all money and capitalism and all the rest of it. But like,
I mean, we didn't want to sound defeatist in this at all.
The shows,
right?
because I've listened to a couple of your episodes. Don't get me wrong, and the ones I find the most interesting are the business ones.
Yeah.
Actually, because they kind of like pull back the hood, and they're kind of like, oh, this is how it actually works.
And I can tell you in general from our own podcast analytics, those are also generally the more popular
because there's not
series.
a ton of them, and they require a lot of research. So kudos to you guys.
'cause
Like,
it's like-
unless you're making shit up, in
If
which
we're going
case,
to talk
kudos
about
to you guys.
if we're going to talk
We're
about
making
like
reality,
if,
bro.
if we talk about like a fantasy series, we're going to talk about that particular character, that plot beat. We're going to be
and loads
very
of
much-
people do it.
Yeah.
Like,
But when it comes to, like you said, right, taking off the veil and seeing what really runs the machine, then
yeah,
we're
why
like,
does this stuff exist? Like, how did this get made?
Yeah.
Right? There's actually a whole podcast I listened to about that.
it's
And we're not even insiders
industry,
into the industry.
Yeah.
And we can already glean so much that is beneath the surface that no one either knows it actually is there.
But it's there. Like,
But-
if you look for it, you can find it.
yeah,
right?
and then now you can't unsee it anymore.
Well, there's also like the majority of people who just don't wanna
care.
Know.
Yeah.
They just don't want to know how the sausage is made.
They just want to eat the sausage because sausage tastes good.
Can I ask you guys something?
Go
Yeah.
for it.
Is there an anime or a manga about making anime or writing
Yes, it's
manga?
called Shirobako.
Wow.
There's even an anime called Bakuman about making manga.
That's hilarious.
Yep.
How is it? Like, how are they?
They're great.
They're
Okay.
great.
Bakuman kind of falls a little bit in the second season, but it's still very
Going-
much real in terms
going-
of like.
Back to what we were talking about. Do they criticize the industry?
Okay, I think it's less about criticizing the industry as much as showing it
Yeah, showing the
then-
shortcomings that come with
and,
it.
and then being like, you be the judge.
Yeah. Like, they're not trying to make a strong statement and hit you.
I
on
mean,
the
of
head with
course,
it.
They're not
they're-
trying
they're-
to flip tables here.
Yeah, there's like drama
but
between the
that's still
characters.
criticism. It's just not like over the top. That's still
No,
criticism. 'Cause
exactly.
If you
Right.
choose to show a shortcoming, you're criticizing.
It's kind of like if you it's not obviously it's fictional, right? But think of it more like a documentarian perspective, as in like it's not necessarily opinionated, but they give you enough such that you can kind of tell where they're leaning towards,
Yeah.
or you make your own opinion.
This is how it's done. This is how it's made. Make of it what you will. But we're not going to tell you how you should feel about it.
But we're kind of showing these parts maybe a little bit more, but we're technically hands off, you know.
Yeah,
That-
we're bipartisan here.
Yeah.
You know?
So take that as you will, and then when you ask them, "Oh, is this what you mean?" They will be like, "I don't know. It's just what it is," you know. So who knows if that's really the intention? But there's a lot of wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of things with those kinds of meta anime and manga that I think nowadays is like very clearly they are aware, and they are like nowadays. Chainsaw Man, Tatsuki Fujimoto's, he released this. So there. Vish, have you heard of a series called Chainsaw Man?
Yeah.
So it's really popular now, right? It's done by this
Bloody,
guy.
violent, gory, but like it's again that shonen dopamine chase.
It's
right?
done by this guy called Tatsuki Fujimoto. Okay, when he finished the first part of Chainsaw Man, so like quote unquote that story is that first chunk is over.
Done, sealed, delivered.
You would think like being on the top of your game, being on everyone's like hot list, like you're the hot celebrity now. You'd be like, oh, you're gonna keep riding that wave, right? You know what he did? He then created 3 one-shots, which is essentially just 1 volume issues of like a contained story. And the first one is called Look Back, that is precisely about making manga.
Oh, cool.
That is now an anime movie that is going to air
In a month or two.
No, it's airing this month in
Yeah.
Japan and probably be airing like a month later in Hong Kong and stuff.
cool.
It deals with not so much the creative process, but in terms of the condition that the writer is in when
The creator.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then there's a lot of what if scenarios, a lot of things where he talks about the potential of missing out on something, what could have been if I had continued doing this. And he visually represents that with some very, very dark and harrowing shit.
And this is on top of the whole thing of him being on the top of his game at that moment, and him being like, "Yeah, bro, I'm good with what I have. I'm just gonna do these things that technically would spell the end of my career." But then all of a sudden, those one shots got massive amounts of attention. And rightfully so, we read it. You can read it in literally like 40 minutes from beginning to end, especially with like the first two, right?
Yeah.
And the last one is just one chapter, so it's like 10 minutes. And it's so impactful that like an anime movie is written now about one of those one shots. So it's like almost career suicide, at least from a lot of typical,
Like, why are you showing
Like,
such
he took a risk. He took a big
well,
risk.
not yeah. It's more like, why are you showing so much vulnerability? Why are you like letting people into the most sensitive nature of your being, knowing that you have just created one of the hardest hitting manga series of all time?
That's violent, that is octane punching, and instead of continuing that, you will continue that, but we didn't know at that moment.
You know what's crazy as well? The guy's only 30. He's 30 years old.
Fuck that. Like, God damn it, Fujimoto Sensei.
Never
Fuck you.
look at their
But like,
age.
I could have seen this happening because there was a series that he had done before Chainsaw Man called Fire Punch. Now that one's a very problematic.
Jesus Christ.
That one's a very problematic series as well. But it's again one of those. Do you want to recommend some depressing shit? This one I would recommend.
Dude,
Fire
Punch is very, very
But-
depressing.
But before he like introduces the chapter, he has like a foreword, and he like kind of just like writes like a couple lines. But a lot of it is like very like disconnected, unhinged. Like one of them will be like, "I had a coffee this morning. I spilled it on the way over. I guess I won't have enough energy for later, but I must continue." Or it could be like,
Chocolate tastes good today. I was like, holy shit.
I
Like,
saw a dead cat this morning. Oh, what could have been? That kind of shit.
It's like little poems.
Yeah. And I was just like, wow, this guy is fucking depressed, but he's still making all this work. And then now it's like, there's no shit that he made things like Look Back and Goodbye Airy and things. It's just,
but it goes back to what you're saying, Vish, about like what people think the audience wants versus giving them what they probably need or want, or a different variety of things, as in like the typical businessman would be like, you're making those one shots right after the heel and the momentum of this awesome series that you just ended that is now greenlit for an anime. Are you crazy? Are you just gonna like throw away your career? And he's like, nah, I'm gonna do that. And then everyone shuts up when it sells millions and then now has a movie, right?
Yeah.
But also he's an exception.
yeah.
Which is like unfortunate.
There's not that many people where like full well that they are not like in the best of mental states, but they also wouldn't want to like put it out there either. Like whether or not like Fujimoto was confident enough in trying to put that kind of stuff out there, it's very much up to his own prerogative,
Right.
I
I think at the end of the day, the creative process is always going to be about compromising between whether or not because at the end of the day, you still gotta make a living.
think
Right.
I think it's a fine line of whether you want to create art or a product.
Yeah.
That's the bit.
And we live in a world where, just like you, Vish, you can literally write a Word document, a manuscript, publish it on Kindle. Will and I can spit fire into our microphones and release it into the ether,
It's just whether or not you can get an audience.
Yeah.
or
That's
whether or
the
not
real
people are
trick.
willing to listen. And
Yeah.
they're both creative works, but at the same time, even the execution of releasing it is a step that not a lot of people are willing to take, and it's just really difficult.
We're getting close to the 2-hour mark. I didn't realize how long we've been talking, but
That is double what I initially thought I'd be able to
I
do.
actually
Credit to you
projected
guys.
this to be done within an hour, but
Yeah, me too.
we hit some real good conversation points, and I didn't want to kill the conversation because it was just wildly entertaining to talk about anime and manga from a perspective that is totally not anime and manga.
Yeah, and something that like we don't usually have the knowledge of because we don't have that perspective.
So
So
like in your lane.
So
Yeah.
we don't want to keep you too long, but
I've had a blast.
Yeah, it was fun. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you wanted to plug? This is your opportunity.
This is the hard part. Yeah. Okay. So I have an Instagram. It's at Vish Vish the Bish Bish Vish the Bish. And if you are interested in trying out some new fantasy from an independent creator, I have a book on Amazon called Empire of Others. And yeah, it's worth giving a shot. It's going to be the first part of a series, and it's historical fantasy or gas lamp fantasy, colonial fantasy. It's a rewriting of the East India Company's history. It's all about colonialism. Anyway, that's it. And if you're in Hong Kong, come see me on Wednesdays.
It's a really good read, and I've been to the poetry nights as well. So
Thank you, sir.
I cannot recommend it any more than what Vish just said. So yeah, thank you so much for being on this.
My
Yeah.
pleasure. It's been fantastic.
I think we should just skip most of the housekeeping script, but we should give credit where credit's due for our music. So, music credits for this episode. Our intro music is Weeping by Cushy, and our outro music... No, sorry. I did it again.
Yeah, weeping.
God damn it.
Later.
God,
but
I fucked up again. Okay, sorry. Our intro music
Is
is Orange by SINY, and our outro music is Weeping by Cushy. You can always listen to the music artists that we feature by listening to them on Spotify, Apple Music, or your music listening platform of choice. And Epidemic Sound always provides all of our royalty-free music. If you're interested, you can sign up using the referral link in our show description. Terms and conditions apply.
So this is the first of hopefully many guest spots that we'll be doing on the Anime Palette podcast. We will be keeping them as more bits and pieces because we wanted to have them a bit more loose. We didn't want to sort of have guests come in only talking about anime and manga, right? I think it would just sort of inhibit the reason why we bring guests on here in the first place. If you want to just hear anime and manga, just listen to the regular episodes. This is more of a spot where we want to talk about the creative, the business, the in-between angles of mediums that may or may not pertain to anime and manga, but are all kind of interconnected. So I hope you all enjoyed listening to this. I hope you also enjoyed your time here as well, Vish.
I did. It's honestly been awesome, and you guys are amazing.
Thanks. You
Yeah.
were amazing, too.
So without further ado, thank you.
You're breathtaking.
You're awesome.
High five, everybody. Yeah.
And
So-
here is Cyberpunk, Keanu Reeves,
Yeah,
right?
that's
In
what I was
E3.
going
Yeah.
for.
So thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Get Anime podcast. We will be back very, very soon with more content. And keep an eye out for a upcoming guest spot. We will be doing many, many more of those. So until then, we'll see you all another time. Peace.